True wilderness is a rare thing, growing scarcer by the day. But true wilderness still thrives in a place many have never seen, even though it's America's largest national forest. A true frontier, unique in its bounty of grizzly bears, wild salmon, soaring eagles, and towering ancient trees. It lies hidden past the northwest reaches of the continental United States in an archipelago of mountainous islands. Shrouded in mist, this intact ecosystem supports a wondrous balance between land, water, animals, and humans. This is our Tongass National Forest in southeast Alaska.
Quick, name all the temperate rainforests in the world. It's not like there are hundreds of these things on the planet. This is a unique place and it's largely intact and it functions as a healthy, abundant, providing ecosystem.
This is the Pack Creek Trail sign that starts the start of the trail, and it gets chewed on by bears a lot, but here's a PA from where it used to say Pack Creek. It's just a good reminder of people that they're in bear country and welcome to the woods.
This is a national forest. It belongs to all the people of the United States. I think it's important to everybody to either have the opportunity to come see this or at least to know that it's here.
Well, you can't just say it's a forest because it's everything that's within it. It's an entire ecosystem, and you know, a lot of times when people hear Tongass, it's related to logging, but really you're talking about fish, you're talking about bears, you're talking about eagles. It's this encompassing thing that really defines southeast Alaska.
Like any scientific or natural history or natural resource situation, the more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to know.
I noticed the natural beauty of the land. See the majestic mountains and the river streams and the forest. Alaska is at least twice the size of Texas. It's a giant country. It's a country of different climates. It's a pioneering state. It is the last frontier of the United States.
Alaska is one of these places where the land is very much connected to the ocean. The salmon come up to spawn every summer. The bears catch the fish, and the bears will drag some of the carcasses off into the woods to eat them. Well, they don't eat the whole thing. They'll leave some of the carcasses in the woods. And as you can see behind me, how big the trees are. The trees have a tendency to be much bigger here because of the nutritional advantage that the fish provide to these plants here. And it's all interconnected. Every plant or animal is somehow dependent upon other plants and animals for them to survive.
We have fresh air here and fresh water you can drink off the mountainsides. The misty fjords, the snow-capped mountains that we still have in August, the fish jumping, the whales, you know, the list goes on and on and on. It's endless. And to have that possibility still available in the 21st century is amazing and definitely worth preserving.
The rainforest is a functioning ecosystem that has ramifications to the health of the whole planet, to the climate of the planet, and that includes cities. There's millions of visitors that come here that want to see a healthy, functioning forest and the things that are in it.
I think a wonderful example of, true wilderness in the Tongass that helps people that maybe aren't from here or don't understand is as you look at the brown bear population on Admiralty Island, which is about 1 bear per square mile. And they say there's more bears on this one island than there is in the entire lower 48.
Southeast Alaska has an abundance of wildlife, including both species of bears, black bears and brown bears. And on some of the islands, there's only brown bears, like Admiralty here. We only have the Alaskan brown bear. And bears, in particular brown bears, need large, vast tracts of undeveloped land here in Southeast Alaska, in the Tongass National Forest. There is a great deal of that, but some areas are still susceptible to being developed by mines and timber extraction. Pack Creek is a very special place because it allows people to come to a place and see wild Alaskan bears. And when they get here, they realize just how special these bears are. These brown bears are a resource that is shrinking. Their habitat is getting smaller and smaller. And when we set aside places like this, it guarantees that they'll always have a place on planet Earth that they can share with humans.
The density of wolves in southeast Alaska is the highest density in Alaska by a significant margin. These wolves are not similar to wolves that occupy interior Alaska or interior British Columbia. They're unique genetically. And so these animals are interesting in their own right in terms of not only their genetic relationships and their genetic uniqueness within the populations of wolves in North America, but they occupy these islands they have for centuries at very high densities, with abundant deer populations, with abundant bear populations, and with Native Americans.
There are few places on Earth where you can confidently say, we'll see whales today. And also that there's this group of whales that cooperatively feeds together, which is so unusual, and just the ability to come to a place where you have these enormous beasts, to be able to even sit on shore or be in a kayak and be next to it and be so moved.
Well, my time in Southeast Alaska, it's been so special to me, and to raise my kids here is that we can go backpacking when they were smaller, and we didn't hear cars and trucks. We could be by ourselves, and we were like in the wilderness.
What wilderness means to me personally on the Tongass and anywhere on the globe really is this assurance for the future, this forever wild concept. It's an especially important job, I think, to preserve these wild places.
The Tongass National Forest is the last temperate, intact rainforest on the North American continent.
Well, in the early 50s, there was a pulp mill was begun in Ketchikan, and in that process was an acceleration of road building and logging in Southeast that had never happened before that. There was like 40 million board feet a year since the early 1900s was the average yearly harvest of timber off the Tongass. And then starting in the early 50s, when the pulp mill came in, then that whole harvest thing just took a quantum leap up to hundreds of millions of board feet.
When I moved here in the summer of '68, I got a job at the Ketchikan Pulp Company, and I worked there for 21 years. There was no talk of conservation. It was the high productive years. We were probably cutting 400 and some million board feet. There was this pulp mill going, the pulp mill in Sitka, the Ketchikan spruce mill was running, and they were producing sawed spruce for export. No, there was no talk of conservation. There were still places to hunt and to fish and to hike. And it was primarily a hunting thing, but there was no talk of conservation.
It's been very emotional watching the changes going on around us and how it's affecting all of the wildlife. What affects the fish and game affects us as a people, because as a Tlingit people, we coincide with nature.
The frequency and scale of clear-cut logging here is alien to the environment. We get a few big windstorms every few centuries. They knock down a lot of trees in different places. Even that doesn't really mimic clear cutting because the biomass is left there, it's not removed.
From my point of view, I like to get out in the woods and hunt and watch the wildlife. And clear cuts are extremely hard to get through. And once they start growing back first with blueberry brush, then with devil's club and alder, they become basically off limits to wildlife and to humans. So there's been a lot of area that is no longer very attractive for recreational or subsistence uses.
Round log exporting is a big factor around here, that we export, providing very little jobs. So they get to cut the tree and then they export it, but then there's no jobs here.
If we're looking at local economies, that certainly isn't building local economies to have that log going out of here and around, because we could produce a finished product here and provide more jobs for more people if that log was processed here rather than going out unprocessed.
The industries down here have been boom and bust over the years, and we need to levelize everything. We can't have this boom and bust economy.
What's brought us together is, in my role as the projects manager for the City of Kaufman Cove, I've been trying to do economic development. Karen works for the university, and she has broadened her job into helping the local sawmill operators and some of the other forest products people to market their stuff and teach them how to do business. We're trying to move forward with a few business opportunities and some different ideas for creating jobs here that will keep people in Kaufman Cove.
You know, when I was a kid, I started out fishing when I was about 4 or 5 years old with a rod and reel, and I used to catch flounders and whatever you could catch, you know, from nearby docks. And I got into fly fishing, which I still love to do. Don't have as much time as I used to do it, but you know, over the years, you know, I fished in Bristol Bay and different places where you catch hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of salmon. I never get tired of catching and eating salmon, never. I doubt that'll change. One of the last few places in the world where you actually see people directly tied to harvesting their own food. To some degree, that creates a personal connection that you're not only interested in seeing, you know, perpetuity of that fishery or whatever it is, the harvesting of that resource, but you become a defender, I guess is probably the best way to say it. One of my mentors, or you know, one of the guys that I learned how to fish from, you know, he's pushing 70, 75 now, and he's out here fishing all the time. Money's not an issue. He just loves fishing. So over 30 or 40 years, through basically good sustainable management in the state of Alaska, you know, we've got a system based on the sense that we put fish in the river first, and then if whatever's excess as far as escapement, we're allowed to harvest. So we continue the sustainable management. I would say as a commercial fisherman, probably the best way to support people in Southeast Alaska and to ensure that we have good, strong, viable fisheries. And part of that's us looking out for our own and looking out for our own fisheries, but support us economically. It's pretty important that, you know, our fisheries stay healthy and sustainable.
because they're direct dollars back to the communities. Buy the fish from Alaska. I mean, all of our fish are sustainable. We don't allow overharvest. We protect our fisheries to make sure that they will last in the future. And if we have a good, strong economic base for the fisheries, where you have fishermen that are engaged, you have processors that are engaged, then likely we are going to, to our best ability, fight interests that are going to be detrimental to those fisheries. We do try to look out there, and there's always threats, on all sides. But I think the best way is to support us economically is to buy the fish.
There's a lot of positive things happening here too, and I'd like to see that continue, although there's some who just feel we got to keep using it up till it's gone, and when it's gone it's too late, and I'll stand here and beat my drum that we have to still continue on a sustainable basis. There's a number of startup companies here who are doing quite well.
Well, my dad started the business 24 years ago. Cruise ships were starting to come in, 1 or 2 a week, and clients were there, and it's just a matter of starting local kayak tours right in the harbor, downtown Ketchikan. And yeah, over the last 10, 15 years, it's really blown up. There's a lot of cruise ships that come to Ketchikan, 900,000 plus passengers through a 5-month season, May to September, and we take out a very small percentage of them kayaking. For folks that are coming off the cruise ship, they only have 6 or 7 hours in port, and a lot of people want to get out and experience the real Alaska. As resident of Southeast Alaska and choosing to live here in this area, you have to realize what products you have and what you can work with. And for us, tourism is a great industry for us to get in. It's sustainable. Folks want to keep coming into Alaska and checking out all what we have to offer here. And for our kayak tours, there's a great way to just get in tune with nature, and to plug yourself into a kayak and go paddle at 2 to 3 knots, and really slows the pace down and gives you a deeper appreciation for all the beauty and natural resources that we have. As long as there's ocean and mountains and scenery, we'll be out there doing it.
Unspoiled public land is becoming more valuable as time goes on, because there's going to be more and more people, there's going to be more congestion, and as long as we can offer a place like this that's wild, let's preserve it. Let's not screw it up for the next generations. And I think that's our obligation for the future, is to give that legacy to the next generation.
People valued wilderness at least as much now as they did a decade or 2 ago. Even though we've passed through these times of very conservative politics where developing the economy seems always to be far more important than necessarily protecting resources, but people still value these wild places very closely. I hope that when my daughter grows up, when she is 46, that she can come back to these places on the Tongass where the bears are walking the streams, or where the seals are having their pups on the ice. And she'll see the same thing that I saw, with very little change. Well, we hope that. We don't know that'll be true. We live in an age of change, really, climate change. But I feel satisfied at least knowing that I'm doing the best I can and working with the people that I know who also care about this place to see that those opportunities still exist.
There are times when we have to not look at the dollar value of things and realize that their importance lies in other aspects of their being here and being alive. I'm sure that many people would love to have the opportunity to walk up here and see this particular tree, and actually there's quite a few around it that are almost equally as impressive. So seeing this as a living organism also has a value that's difficult to put a dollar value on, but that's our challenge, is to recognize that it has a value. The things that I treasure are being able to walk out into the woods like this and see these beautiful things. This is actually the first time I've been to this particular spot, and I'm almost at a loss for words at how impressive these huge trees are.
In America, the vast majority of society is a full spectrum of people that are from one extreme to the other, seeing the very intrinsic value in having areas protected forever, and other people that realize that for society to be strong, there has to be a strong economy, and that you need places where you can extract the resources and for people to live happily. And Admiralty is one of these places that we need to set aside, because once resource extraction starts happening and roads are built and mines are dug into the ground, you can never reverse that. Those places will always be forever scarred. And if you protect it forever, then generations to come, many generations in the future, they'll be able to come and enjoy this place very much as the people that are here today.
There's value in having relatively pristine systems preserved, both scientifically, both aesthetically, as well as culturally, and as well as providing real value to people in terms of subsistence hunting. And so this is a valuable ecosystem as it is. And deer and wolves and bears are important components of that ecosystem, and we should take care of them.
I think we should all be aware and cautious about how we consume the resources of Alaska, so it's on a sustainable basis, so we don't abuse the consumption of the resources. And I think we should not ever forget that's part of our moral obligation.
There isn't another place like this on the face of the planet. I mean, all of the geological and meteorological conditions came together at just the right time in the Earth's history to create this system that will sustain itself and will do so indefinitely if we take care of it. And it'll provide jobs and recreation and food and clean water and clean air forever and ever if it's allowed to exist in a big enough chunk that it can sustain itself. It doesn't exist like this anywhere else on the planet, and that's worth a lot.